Today's video is sponsored by Raycon. So if you're anything like me and enjoy working out on a weekly basis, it's paramount that you have a quality pair of earbuds. Raycon is on a mission to prove that you don't have to fork over hundreds of dollars for top-notch sound with all the bells and whistles of other premium brands. I've owned earbuds made by big tech companies, and although the sound was good, none of them had the comfort or reliability of Raycon. I've partnered with Raycon in the past, and they sent me a pair of everyday earbuds that you see me wearing here. If I wasn't 100% satisfied with the product, well, I wouldn't be doing this ad. You get crystal clear audio quality with noise isolation, 8 hours of playtime, and 3 customizable sound profiles to best match what you're listening to. Did I mention that you can buy a pair of Raycons and even get a spare set as a backup, and still pay less than you would with other big-name brands for just one pair? I literally use mine every week, get covered head to toe in sweat, and I've yet to have any issues with my Raycon earbuds. Support my channel by clicking the link in the description or going to buyraycon.com/522 to get 15% off your Raycon purchase. Everyone has a story of someone in their past who they expect to see on the nightly news. That steroid-fused father who got thrown out of his kid's soccer game. The moronic prankster who sent out an anonymous bomb threat just to cut class. The ex who could never quite give up. Every time I hear a tragedy on the news, whether it be a shooting or a kidnapping or some other form of horror, a small voice in the back of my head creeps up, from a whisper to a crescendo. What if that guy finally did what he said he was going to do, and I never told anyone? I couldn't live with that. So now I'm telling you. There aren't any ghouls, ghosts, or goblins in this story. No creatures hiding in your peripherals. No illusions of grandeur. This is the story of the truest horror I've ever experienced in my life. One that I've kept to myself for far too long. This is the story of the psychopath who ruined my sophomore year of college. I went to a state school in the heart of New Jersey. My life wasn't all that different from your average college experience, I suppose. After a year of living on campus, my friends and I decided to break free from the shackles of dorm life and rent a house off campus. The area and the house itself were sketchy at best. In the first month, we were forced to move out for a couple of days because of an electrical fire in the upstairs apartment. It was fairly common for somebody to be mugged there at night, and if you went down a few blocks, shootings were not unheard of either. I rented the house with 5 other guys, and a group of 6 girls lived next door. We knew them from freshman year, and managed to rent 2 buildings right next door to one another. The first couple of weeks were amazing. Parties, drinking, debauchery. Sleep was for the day, and class was for the dumb. There was one girl in particular, Alyssa. She had always been like a little sister to me. She dated my friend for a few months, and we had become good friends in the process. Alyssa was the type of girl that had to try every obscure activity at least once. StarCraft Club? Check. Classics Club dress-up night? Check. Getting stoned and passing out on the roof? Check. It was her idea to move somewhere nearby, and I was naturally all for it. One day, after a few weeks of living off campus, she came to me with a flyer. I believe it was called "Learn to Give the Perfect Massage." To be honest, I wasn't one to sacrifice my time at these events. They usually involved forced social interactions that almost always amounted to nothing but 20 kids desperately eyeing the clock. However, I hadn't been out that much. I'd been pigeonholing myself to my own group of friends for quite some time. It was time to meet some new people, so I decided to give it a shot. Alyssa and I got to the class 5 minutes late, and the lecture had already begun as we grabbed our seats. Most people in the class were typical guys, anxious for the excuse to obviously grope girls. A few were shy, awkward freshmen who were just trying to make new friends. But there was one guy that stood out to me. He sat in the back of the room, away from all the groups and circles. He was on the floor with his legs spread and pulled up to his chest. He was looking straight down, with a stoic look painted on his face. For some reason that I can't really explain, this guy struck me as different. I don't know why, to be honest. There was nothing about his appearance that was abnormal. He wore a pair of blue jeans and a plain white shirt, but the way he avoided eye contact with everyone in the room for the entirety of the lecture still gives me chills to this day. After a brief introduction and an hour or so of instruction and lecture, we were randomly paired to begin trying the exercises on one another. I was partnered with a chatty girl with long black hair who seemed nice enough. Alyssa, on the other hand, was not so lucky. I walked over to Alyssa and her partner and said hello. She smiled nervously at me, pretending to be incredibly involved with putting things in her backpack, while her partner just glared at me for 10 seconds. I opened my mouth to introduce myself, and he just turned and walked away. "What was that all about?" I asked her, thoroughly baffled. "I have no idea. He didn't say a word the entire time. I tried talking to him and asking him about school, and he didn't say anything. He just said his name was TJ. Can we just go?" We grabbed our things and headed home. Because it was a Friday night, Alyssa and her roommates came over to drink and hang out. To be perfectly honest, I don't remember much about that night. So let's move on to the next morning. Alyssa woke up and had 5 emails, all from different accounts, but with a similar theme. "Hello, this is TJ from class. It was really nice to meet you. Do you know of any parties tonight? I'd love to bring you to one. Here's my number. Do you use this email often? Please write back with your number. I added you on Facebook. My name there is Joe Simpson." First of all, Alyssa had never given TJ her email. He probably found out that information on a school mailing list or something. Regardless, Alyssa responded with a kind, yet firm email. She lied and said that her boyfriend was very protective and didn't want her giving out her number to other men. After that, he didn't respond. Second, his name wasn't Joe Simpson. I have no idea why he liked using alternate names. There was at least 20 in the first week. He tried using names like Henry Ford and John Jones. Things began to get creepier. He would create names that actually meant something to her. Jim Carrey, her favorite actor. When that didn't work, he tried her favorite author, musician, athlete. We never knew how he learned so much about her. The messages became more descriptive. "Your boyfriend is a fucking scumbag. He's cheating on you. If I make him leave you, will you see me?" Ignoring him only made it worse. After he somehow found out what her number was, the emails soon turned into phone calls. He would call in the middle of the night. Sometimes he wouldn't say anything. He would just sit there in silence as Alyssa yelled into the phone, begging for him to leave her alone. Once he got Alyssa's phone number, he found out who her real boyfriend was. He would call and message him, saying that he was worthless and that she didn't care about him, and that she had hooked up with him behind his back. When it got to the point where she was concerned for her safety, she contacted the school. This was before school shootings were a major problem in America. Schools were not nearly as concerned about what they viewed as an argument among college students. Since he had never physically threatened Alyssa or her boyfriend, there was nothing that they could do but bring him in for a talk. That didn't help. 3 days later, Alyssa got a message from TJ. It was just a couple of words, but it was enough. It was her address. Funny how 2 words on a 4x4 screen can make you fear for your safety and the safety of those around you. She packed up a bunch of her things, called her boyfriend, and asked if she could stay at our place for a while. She didn't have any other guy friends in the area and didn't have the money for a hotel. Naturally, we told her, of course. What chance did one guy have against a group of overconfident 19-year-olds? That night, my roommate stayed home, while I went out to a nearby bar and had a drink, or 6, with some friends of mine from class. I remember stumbling back down the empty streets at around 2 in the morning. It had just started to snow, and I was underdressed in a thin button-down shirt. I stripped it off as I rounded the corner to my house. I was drunkenly trying to shake off the snow when I looked up and saw TJ standing on my front porch. He turned to face me, and I'll never forget the look of determination on his face. In one hand, he held a collapsible baton. In the other, a key to our apartment. I stood there in utter disbelief, staring at TJ for what must have been a full minute. He didn't say a word. There was a glassy look in his eyes, one of cold indifference. He looked down at me from the porch like I was a mouse caught in his trap. I watched his hand for any sudden movements. Finally, I stepped forward. He spoke. "Hi, my name is Henry Ford. Do you know where 48 High Street is?" He never blinked, never shifted uncomfortably, scratched his head, fidgeted. Nothing. When the snow is coming down that hard, you rarely see people stand that still. They are constantly brushing the frozen flakes from their face, adjusting their sleeves, fixing their gloves, etc. His gaze was static, in control, and ready. I shook my head in disbelief. I know who you are, TJ. You need to go, now. I am looking for 48 High Street. There's a party there. His serious demeanor, the one that never seemed to turn off, slowly melted from his face. He turned the corner of his lips to reveal a sickly, painted smile. "Did you hear me? I said that you need to..." In one fluid motion, he reached back with his baton and cracked it across my ribs. The sharp pain was incredible. For anyone who says a baton isn't a serious weapon, you've obviously never been struck by one. It felt as though he had shattered my entire ribcage. It was one of the few moments in my life where I've seen stars and nearly blacked out due to the pain. Luckily, the whiskey I had drank earlier dulled it enough. I reached back and responded with a right hook. He screamed. It was one of the most disturbing noises I've ever heard. You're going to laugh, but it sounded like one of those howler monkeys when it finds out that there's an enemy in its territory. Immediately, barely losing a step, he hopped to his feet and ran down the street. At this point, my roommates had begun to pour out of my house. They were still half asleep, but knew that something was wrong. I was kneeling in the street, cursing up a storm, as I watched him sprint around the corner. Thankfully, my ribs were not shattered, only deeply bruised. I had to wear a thick layer of bandages for a couple of weeks to ensure that nothing broke accidentally. 1 week later, TJ was kicked out of school. The night that all this happened, we called the police. My statement about the fight outside of our house Didn't do much, to be honest. Nobody had seen it. My roommates came outside just after TJ ran off, where he left me shirtless in the street, clutching at my ribcage. Police officers pointed out the fact that I was intoxicated, and how would I know who the hell hit me in my condition? The end result of all this was that TJ was never criminally charged. However, there were two things that we could do. Alyssa filed for a restraining order and was allowed to return to her house, and 2 police officers patrolled our block every night for the next week at our request. For a while, none of us heard from TJ. Things seemed to slowly return to normal. Alyssa resumed sleeping at our house once the police patrols were finished. She returned to being the normal, carefree girl that I have always known. She no longer nervously checked over her emails or Facebook every 10 minutes, and she even began to go out to the bars on some nights. As for me, I eventually stopped carrying around a small knife in my boot whenever I would go out after dark. We all thought that he had finally given up. Around 2 months later, I was up late one night watching old episodes of 6 Feet Under on my laptop. You know the routine, don't you? It's always, just one more episode. This is the excuse for me being up at 3 o'clock in the morning, when I received a notification.
You've got mail.
I opened it up, and this is what it read. From Frank Forward. Hello. You don't know me, but I'm a friend of Alyssa's from bio class, and I need to reach her about a study group. Do you mind giving me her number? This troubled me. First of all, how the hell did this person know that I was Alyssa's friend? Fearing the worst, I responded. Sorry, man. I can't give out her number. Just get it next time you see her. Seconds later, I got a response. You stupid fucking prick. How about I come over there and make you fucking tell me? You know I'll find out, one way or another. I nearly threw my computer out of the window. It was 3 in the morning, and I did not want to deal with this shit. I didn't grace him with a response. I simply deactivated my Facebook account. I spoke with Alyssa the next day, and the look on her face told me everything that I needed to know. The messages themselves weren't overly threatening at first. Usually he would ask her about how her day was going, what was her biology professor like, and what she thought about the current political climate. Alyssa knew who it was, and ignored him entirely. Eventually he got a hold of her new phone number. I have no idea how. At first, he would call her every night, and she would never answer, of course. So he began leaving these ranting voicemails. The topic of these messages would vary. Sometimes it would be a ranting political anecdote. Other times he would talk about biology, or a recent Jim Carrey movie that came out. Other times he would scream at the top of his lungs, "Pick up the damn phone!" Over time, the voicemails and messages began to decrease to once a week, then one every other week, then once a month. As time moved on, Alyssa's attitude toward the situation changed. It became apparent that TJ was no longer something she could eradicate, more so something that she would just have to live with. Junior and senior year went by normal for the most part. He still would call her here and there, but the nature of these messages were nowhere near as threatening. Sometimes he would say he had the wrong number, and sometimes he would just ramble on. It was strange, but he just sort of faded out. By the time we graduated, none of us had heard from TJ in 6 months. Most of us had changed our numbers a couple of times and used fake names on Facebook. We thought that he was finally getting the help that he needed. Honestly, I don't know. What I do know, the reason that I'm bringing all of this up now, why I desperately need to get this off of my chest, for the sake of my own sanity. Last Tuesday night, I got a message from a Henry Forward for the first time in years. Did you miss me? Help me find her, or I'll find you. I wish I could give all of you a more concrete ending. Good guy catches bad guy and throws him in jail for the rest of his life. Bad guy finds the help he needs and mends fences with those that he terrified. All's well that ends well, right? Here's the truth. I don't know where TJ is. I don't know if he's still watching my old apartment, or if he knows exactly where I am. He can know where I work, where I sleep, who I'm dating, what I'm writing. Hell, he could even be reading this right now for all I know. I'll leave you with the same response that I sent him on Tuesday night. I'll be waiting. Hey everyone, this is your Uncle Unit. Thank you so much for checking out my video. If you have a story that you would like me to narrate on this channel, please send it to my email, unit522submit@gmail.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future content. And if you would like to support this channel even further, you can check out my merch store. There's a link for that in the description. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you stay tuned for the next video. Until then, never forget